Because law of attraction tells you that what you're learning you attract, and what you need to learn you attract. What people forget is that because of law of creation, you attract what you are and what you are working and growing into. So people forget about that in law of attraction when it is taught in more modern day teachings that if you attract, say, some narcissistic behavior, is because you're the narcissist. Well, that could be. It could be that you have some tendencies. It could be that you're meant to become a great teacher of empathy. Do you see how this works? You attract what you are. So because of the way that karma operates in our working world, our working practical world, our physicality, what we see, what we think we know, karma operates in duality. So when I say you attract what you are in the law of creation, when you don't know what you are because of the nature of our dualistic earth and structure of how karma works within it, guess what that means? You need to learn and see and feel and know what you are not. This is a frustrating part of karma, and people have confused that with being either punished or rewarded. When, going back to at the beginning of this class, I stated that if you throw a rock into the sky and say it loses gravity, because karma energy does work in that way, it may hold a lot of gravity, just smack you in the face, or it could be just very light and gentle karma that floats around for a little while before it boomerangs its way back. But either way, if you throw a rock into the air, what does the law of physics say to you? What goes up must come down. If you throw it in front of you, it boomerangs back. You throw it up, it comes down. You throw it behind you, it comes forward. Everything, every action that you place into the world comes back in whatever direction. And science can evidence that from so many angles, from the universal law of reflection, from the physics law of reflection, from the kinetics of motion and things that are less than motion, sort of static, static laws in physics. There's so many ways that we can evidence that. But when it comes to what you create, you believe it doesn't exist if your eyes can't see it. Yet simultaneously, you believe in that which you cannot see if you see its effects. And this is why you believe in atoms. This is why you believe in nanoparticles. This is why you believe in quarks, because physics can see its effect. Therefore, with that being so, do you believe that it would be beneficial to say that everything else wouldn't be the same? That your thoughts would be excluded from that? That your emotions would be excluded from that? That your actions or lack of action would be excluded from that, right? So when the rock goes up and you walk away and then it comes down, what do? You say somebody else did it. Somebody else did it. And then when you can't explain why they want to do it to you, it's typical that one would say, well, because I need to learn a lesson, or because of karma, I need to reap a reward or reap, something punishing. That is the way that karma is most deeply misunderstood. So you attract what you are. And how do you know what you are? By becoming conscious, feeling, and learning about what you are not. Okay? It's as simple as that. I would not have known to teach a class about karma had I not had it in my face for the past 3 years, inappropriate teachings of karma. Do you see what I mean? And I go, oh no, did you just say that? And then I get up some passion within me, right? Have you ever felt that way? That you see something that you don't like and it reminds you of what you are? The law of creation operates in that. However, you attract what you are, not what you want. not what your mind thinks you need. You attract what you are in that moment, whether you are conscious and aware of it or not. And that's where the problem lies. That's where the opportunity also lies in revealing the problem so that you can heal, clear, and purify the suffering that has arisen from it. Okay. So does everyone understand the law of creation? You attract what you are. And that's the only reason why you attract it, because energy moves. Karma is energy that moves. Because you are also energy, you put it out, guess what? It comes back. That's it. It's not discriminatory. You're the being who gives it discretion, not God, not the universe, not some 3 planets in the sky. I heard someone talking about that this morning. Some planets that collect karma and then give it back to you. And I'm not an astrologer, so I go, yeah, maybe in someone else's world. I don't understand that world, not my world, right? I believe in another version of that called the law of responsibility, which we'll get to in a moment. Another law that I'm going to teach you about today is so simple. But before we go into that, does anyone have any questions about the law of creation? Now's the time. Okay. Tulsi gets like a really interesting taste after a while if it's been infused for too long. What would be an example of it? Oh gosh, everything you see is an example of it. Let's see who's asking that. In belief systems, you can attract your version of I am unlovable and meant to be alone. And then you see evidence of it when nothing happens in your relationships that you want. So you can work on that by becoming aware of the belief that causes that action to surround you. When you have a passivity in your actions, you get passivity in what you attract. That's one way. I always wanted to teach people who are working their way to mastery. And there are many more people in this world who would rather just sit back and utilize spiritual teachings to get what they want. I did not attract people who were working their way into mastery until I began to work my way into mastery. So then I got what I want, and I was super surprised by it. So that's an example of law of creation. And that showed me that I'm also super surprised when someone tells me I've mastered something, or the world evidences to me that I'm a master at certain things. And then when I had this whole group of masters before me, I sometimes go, okay, wow, okay, that's evidencing itself. And of course, ego goes, oh, now what? They're masters. What are you going to teach them? Right? And then I have to master more to teach a master. Phew. Not exactly what I wanted, but still such a beautiful opportunity. Right? Any other questions about law of creation? Law of attraction works with law of creation. For example, I wanted to evidence to myself that the universe would completely financially support a new endeavor, and it's an expensive endeavor, and it involves my plant medicine. And I sat with the prices of it, and I'm like, oh gosh, it's going to be at least $3,000 to $5,000, maybe even slightly more. to begin this endeavor, to get the supplies for it. It's a very product-oriented endeavor where I specifically tap into with my medical intuition and create plant medicines. I also wanted the whole sacred, holy experience of gardening from seed up in my environment. And every time I come close to that in my life, I have to move. So that never really fully happens. I'll get started and then the universe will give me some massive calling that I can't ignore and I got to go. Right. So I finally come to a place in my life where it happens, but the funds aren't there because, well, COVID, how it affects businesses. So I went, I wonder if something unusual can happen that my clients could help me with and they could raise this money for me, but in a way that isn't incredibly expensive for them. and something happened. And it was very unusual because it was also addressing another project that I want to create involving animal communication. So I was working on that other project and something came up. In the midst of this animal project communication, this is just an example of how karma works. There was like a competition of some kind for my cat, for cats and animals. And I was like, wow, I'm just curious if that would be a way. And I looked at the winnings on it. Of course, ego said, your cat, she's smart, she's wise, not really that cute. So who are the judges? And, what if some other cuter cat wins and is a waste of time and all this sort of stuff. But when you are following something in karma, you can't let your ego talk you down or talk you out of it. So Gracie is now about to be probably in the top 5. We'll know here in a few days. And they're like culling it down, and she's still there. So that's in the process of creation. And that $5,000 will be the money that likely lands the plant medicine for you. I wanted to create cheap, effective plant medicines, but I just didn't have the funds. So I have to start a garden. I want to do it ethically. I like foraging, but in Colorado, it's mostly against the law. Depending upon where you're going, it can be against the law. So it's very, very interesting. She's not listening to me right now. I heard that. Anya said, Gracie's right here. Don't let her hear you. Right. She's cute, but not like, Persian cute or anything. She's like standard looking little cat. So in that law of creation, I'm still in that process of wonder, and I get surprised every time she makes it to another cut. I'm like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? Is that really happening? And that's, another example of law of creation. I made a little wish. I'm like, I've always wanted to record in the Integratron. Not really fully familiar with how to record myself yet. Still in the process of learning my own software and all sorts of stuff. And I just kind of put it out there one day. I'm like, yeah, guys, it's expensive to record in the Integratron, not to mention the travel and the costs. And, it's probably $200 an hour. I don't know what it is. And I need many hours. So I put it out there during a class one day. And then a couple of days later, I had a gift certificate that someone had sent to me to be able to record for almost like a full day. It's like a full day in the Integratron. So now you can't not do it, right? Then this is how my next sound healing album, it's called The Hathors. It's all light language and all sorts of healing coming in through that specific group. Hathors and the Katama, all those beings will be there, right? So these are examples of law of creation. You want something, but it is what you are. Sound is what I am. Plant medicine is what I am. It's the essence. It embodies a certain essence. Even though the physicality obviously isn't what I am, there is an essence there that we're going to be talking today. And when you tap into that very powerfully, you begin to activate it. And then when you put an action out, whether it be initially from thought, feeling, and then you speak it, that's very powerful, or you do something to create it, that's very powerful. that action begins to return to you, and it returns to you threefold, and it returns to you in three different directions: the direction of the past, the direction of the present, and the direction of what you are creating and will be creating in the future, right? So every time you say something, that means that your words are a sacred promise. That's the law of creation. Okay. How can you find who you are in what you are not? You find what you are in what you are not. When you see actions and they almost repel you, it means that your very essence in what you want to do, what you want to create, and what you want to learn is vastly different. So for instance, when you look around at the world right now and you're super disgusted at the wars that are going on, is there something in you that wars yourself? Is there a tyrant in you? Not towards others, probably. You would repel that. You would hate that about yourself. You never let yourself live it down. But are you a tyrant to yourself? How are you tyrannical in your lives? Do you see what I mean? There's so many different ways I can answer that, Pearl. But because of duality, we learn what our actions are or what we want them to be, what we want to do and create and feel, how we want to think, how we want to feel. We learn all of that by seeing the opposite of that. So if we see the opposite of that and we get completely repelled by it and we stay in that repulsion, well, we don't get much done, you see. And this is where the law of presence comes in. Does that make sense? It's just a simple conscious awareness that, oh my gosh, we're repelled by that. And we're so repelled by it that we're busy focusing on that and fighting that we didn't remember the piece of who we are. We didn't really remember that we're being tyrants to ourselves right now, right? So you can't find who you are because who you are is not a who. It's not a personality. It's not a form. It's beyond the human mind. But when you clear your karma and you sit with yourself long enough, you will feel who you are. And eventually you will begin to know it. Not she, not he, it. Who you are is a vibration, not a personality. Okay. The second one I want to talk to you about today is something called the Great Law. I probably should have put that as number one, but I didn't for some reason. And you know this one: as you sow, you shall reap. So in other words, karma is created through our thoughts, whether we are aware of them or not. In today's class, we're learning how to become aware of them. Our feelings and our belief systems, whether we're aware of them or not. And again, we need to become aware of them. Our words, and that means what you speak to yourself or another, and what you write, what you type on social media, also same thing. If you type it, write it, speak it, sing it, say it, breathe it, it's karma. That becomes an action. Eventually you will begin to act upon it, and others will as well. And you are creating finally something. You are sowing the seeds of intentional conscious karma. That's one way. Another way that karma acts is like a computer program. Karma is memory, right? One of the more modern and super powerful gurus that I know, Sadhguru, says, you may not remember your great-great-great-great-grandfather, but his nose is sitting on your face. That's an example of evolutionary karma, or what I call genetic karma. It runs down through the genes from your ancestors to your parents and your great-grandparents, and eventually you, your brothers, your sisters, etc. It creates both the limits and the powerful open abilities of what you are more physiologically, right? So there's that. But if you are unaware of how it affects you, it runs like a program that just does what it's supposed to do. kind of like, you know, where did I write this down to give you an example? Hold on. Yeah, here's what I wrote down. If you aren't conscious enough to see your karma, much less use it, it runs like a software. For example, can you run your smartphone? I remember the first time I got a smartphone and I was like, oh, people are doing all this stuff on it. Right. And it just was taking me over. I just could not run it. And I just did not have any interest in it. And before I knew it, it's like all the technologies of how to reach all of my students, our evolutionary karma in terms of our technical evolutionary karma, because technology evolves as well. It turned into this, like, to me, it felt like a monster. I'm showing my age right now. It felt like this overwhelming thing that I had to do to run a business, to be able to reach you, because I can't drive, say, all the way to Kansas and say, here's a flyer that I could put on your car. That's how I used to get clients. I used to put flyers on cars, those annoying things. Then I realized people just threw them away and didn't even read them. So then I gave magnets and I would go stick them on cars and stuff. But, you know, that got expensive too. And then I realized there's only so much that I can do in the karma of people around me. They just weren't in my world. The people that I wanted to reach were not in my world. But karma attracts who you're supposed to reach, not who you want to reach. And I wasn't in that space to pull in who I want to reach, probably until very recently, even until I'd say maybe even like 2021 or so. So I wasn't in that space. So I attract who needs me most. And that's it. Not what I want, who needs it most. Right. Oh, okay. Piecing together karma as their memory, she says, helps me understand better. That's good. That's good. Okay, so does everyone understand the great law? As you sow, you shall reap. And believe me, it's not punishment or reward. Just that's what you put out there in your thoughts, your feelings, your words, and your actions. That reaps both individual and collective karma. Any questions on that one? Nope. Okay.